when it comes to these conversations. I think Reddit and YouTube are definitely some of the best places to start. And the concept that came into mind when I saw this Reddit post, it was a long thread that someone posted, and it was talking about, it was very interesting too. It's talking about the concept of gacha games, and as far as like the addiction of them, right? And so the question I wanted to basically propose is like, is the concept of gacha games in itself unhealthy? Like, of course, too much of anything is like unhealthy, right? But gacha games specifically, like the whole concept, is it destructive to the human health? And I think there's a couple of things that we can go about with that, right? Because there's two big concepts that came up, and it was very interesting when you think about it. Because when you're playing the games, you're just thinking about the concept of like you're just having fun. But a lot of people don't think about the concept of the goal, right? What is the true goal? Like when you think of a gacha game, is endless, right? Is just a loop, or like as they described it, a pointless loop. And so like when I was like, okay, let me just think about this. Okay, I was like, I just wrote it down. I was like, okay, let me go back to my roots. What's my like number one gacha game that I played? I was like, all right, Grand Blue. I was like, all right, what's the point of Grand Blue? I was like, let's see, you get your grid up to do more stuff, to like do more content, to do the stronger content, to potentially get more gear, to where you can get more crystals to get more characters, so you can get more gear to get more characters to get more gear to get more characters. And it's like it just constantly keeps going, right? So then I'm just like, oh, they're right, it is a constant loop. It's like you're just getting stronger to get the currency, to get more characters, to gear more characters, to get stronger again, to complete the process, right? It was like a depressing article almost, because it was talking about like the time you spend on them like could be spent on like, you know, you could be doing other things. He spent like X amount of time on this, which could have been spent on like a skill or something like that, or a craft that could have like better benefited him in some aspect. He's like, even if you're like free to play, he still feels that the concept could be destructive in the aspect of they're very time consuming. Now some of them, of course, you could just go on, some people just go on, do their dailies and they're off, right? That's fine. But he's talking about the people that like sit there and like play, and it's talking about the, you know, the pointlessness of them. He's like, you know, story game stuff, you go in with a goal in mind to see the end of the game, but you never really want to see the end of a gacha game, because the end of a gacha game is the closing of the servers, which everybody would hate to see, especially when you invested so much time and money in something. I mean, it's bound to happen eventually, right? I mean, we could just talk right now with like, I mean, we're all playing Honkai, right? Inevitably, Honkai eventually is probably going to close, right? I mean, it may be 50 years from now, but it's eventually going to happen, and then like, you know, all that time and money is like going to be going. And that's the thing with gambling, right? In general, just the nature of gambling is just most people don't get back enough return from what they put in, right? In the end, most people don't. And then that's what the concept that he was talking about. So then it goes into the concept of gambling when you talk about the pointless loop on top of that. Other thing with that is what makes gacha games in themselves inherently addictive. Because gambling in itself is addictive, but what makes gacha games specifically addictive is the character stuff. But it's also have something to do with our mentalities as humans, and like specific chemicals that gaming in general give us. And I talked about it before. It's the biggest one is dopamine, right? Dopamine is a chemical that gives you like happy feelings. And the reason why we play games is because games give us instant gratification, which we can't get inside of life. But gacha games, you get dopamine in different ways. There was a good like scientific game video. You guys probably heard of Game Theory, that channel, before. But one of the good ones about that was they were talking about the concept of you get the dopamine released inside your brain basically before you click on something. Because it's the anticipation that gives it to you. So it's not even a feeling of getting the character. It's the anticipation of getting the characters that you want. People love the thrill. People definitely love the thrill of getting like, okay, I honestly wonder. I wonder what would happen if there was a gacha game. It wouldn't even be a gacha game at that point. What if they put everything in a gacha element, right? Everything was gacha element, but you will always guarantee the character on like the first pull. Would that game be super popular? I wonder if that game will be that popular. Or would people not like the game because there's no status, there's no like, you don't feel like you earned it. You just get it. How would people feel then if you just get it? You know, if it's set up completely like a gacha, you got your crystals and all that, and it's like, oh boy, the new banner, you click the button, I got him. That's not fun. Would people like that? Would that game do good? So it got me thinking, like, you know, it's the gambling aspects. That's what people like. People like the idea, the risk involved, because even if you're free to play, you're still risking something. You're risking two things for free to play. You're risking your hard-earned crystals, and the hard-earned part comes from your time. You spent a lot of time building up, saving up to get this currency. Is the thrill of potentially getting what you want. But then it also is a double-edged sword, because that comes with the idea of the depression that comes with it when you don't get what you want. Now, there's some couple of good articles about it too that I wanted to pull up, but let me see what you guys are saying before we start talking about some of the articles. I guess it varies from person to person. There are people who enjoy the mindless satisfaction of just constantly getting things from it and sort of becoming an addict. If you don't get satisfaction from anywhere else besides that, games, I can't imagine it's hard to be addicted. That makes sense. But most people who are addicted to gambling, it's because it's the satisfaction. It's the satisfaction, and it's the risk. People love the thrill. That's why anybody do thrill things. People just want, you know, something that does something out of the ordinary. That's kind of why we get on roller coasters and stuff. It's a little bit, it does something different to our body that we can't perform ourselves. You know, we can't go propelling like that ourselves in all these different type of angles. We need this machine to do it for us. You know what's, just speaking back on what I was just saying about the roller coaster, there was actually an experiment before. I forget what it was, but it goes back into the anticipation, right? People would like instant gratification, but people don't want it too fast. And that's what we just talking about with like the game. Like, would a game be successful if it gave it to you like right away? I think it was an experiment for something about like amusement parks, and like if there was like no wait times at all. Apparently more people like to have a slight wait for anticipation. When people were able to get on things as fast as possible, then like the satisfaction of all the rides wasn't like what they expected. It was some weird thing like that. Like they wanted the experience to like last a little bit longer, but because they were always going on everything as fast as possible, the satisfaction wasn't the same as if they had to wait 15 to 20 minutes. And then there's the waifu aspect of it. Some people get really attached over characters. I love Rita to death, but as soon as I sign off a Honkai, I ain't thinking about Rita at all. I got bills. I got bills. Also, I have the mindset, if I want something out of the game and I pay for it, then I don't pay for it, help the devs to get better at the thing they make. I mean, I guess some people could think of, you know, paying for things help fund the thing that they love. That's why I'm saying, like, gacha games is a different aspect and than regular gambling. It's a little bit different. Because you're not throwing off money and like never getting anything in return. You're in gacha experience, you're at least getting something in return. It may not be the thing you want, but you're getting something. In actual gambling, you can literally get nothing. But yeah, so talking about these articles that I was talking about, make sure, okay. Let me read some of the gambling article real quick. Then we're gonna go to the actual gacha game portion of it. So it was talking about compulsive gambling. This is a pretty good organization. I've done some stuff with them as far as like research stuff on this website before. Compulsive gambling, also called gambling disorder, is an uncontrollable urge to keep gambling despite the toil it takes on your life. Gambling means that you're willing to risk something you value in hopes of getting something of even greater value. Gambling can stimulate the brain reward system, much like drugs or alcohol can, leading to addiction. If you have a problem with compulsive gambling, you may continuously chase bets that leads to losses, hide your behavior, deplete savings, accumulate debt, or even result to theft and fraud support your addiction. I don't think nobody's been going that far. I mean, there are cheaters in games though. Compulsive gambling is a serious condition that can destroy lives. Although treating compulsive gambling can be challenging, many people who struggle with compulsive gambling have found help through professional treatment, and then there's like a bunch of symptoms here. But the thing we really like that we really could take from this is, like I was saying before, gambling can stimulate the brain reward systems, much like drugs or alcohol. It's the dopamine. Dopamine is like a drug for our brains, and that's what leads to the addiction. It says you may continuously chase bets that leads to losses. So you're willing to risk something you value in the hopes of getting something in return. Put that in the gacha game terms, that's what it is. We're giving up, it's like I said, time. If you're free to play, time and your crystals. All of us are giving crystals, but for pay to play players, of course, it's your money involved as well, and that's what you're risking in the hopes of getting something of greater value, which is the character. Putting it more into gacha terms, this is a very, like I said, some couple of threads that came up on Reddit not too long ago. This guy said, I played a few gacha games to grow your loss. FGO, aka Magura Records. Over the past month, I've spent $600 on gacha. I am extremely impulsive, and I kind of feel like it's the end of the world when I've done the latest character in these games. They talk about, mental illness and stuff. Also, it's not like I can afford this. Still with their parents, so it's they spent $600. They're still with their parents, but they're still spending money in the game. So everything points to gacha being a bad influence on life, but I feel attached to these games. I put in hundreds of hours in some of them, and it will crush me to delete them from my life. None of my friends understood this attachment, so I'm seeking general gacha community. Should I give up gacha games eternally? This is like talking about something like completely crazy. So it's like they spending money on the game, they're with their parents and stuff like that, but they have this attachment that they don't want to give up because they invested so much time. That's what I'm saying. Time is a big factor, because even though if you're not spending money, time is a big thing here. And so it brings up the main point of today, which is free to play players versus pay to play players mentality with games. And I think the thing that brings that up, and I think the things that really do it, if we look at the type of games like this, there's two big things that people spend for. Are obviously one, characters, that's the easiest thing. But then there's the second thing, they feel they are forced to. And the only reason people feel like they're forced to spend is if a game has a competitive aspect which has specific rewards tied to it that you can't get anywhere else. And so if a game has a competitive aspect and they feel like they have to have these good units in order to compete, in order to get the things that they want from there, then they feel a little bit more forced in the situation to spend to try to get those good things. There was one online racing game called Need for Speed World, and I threw high 3 digits in for it after 5 months of me playing, and it shut down. See, yeah, that sucks, man. And it's the scary thing too. It's like nobody wants to see a gacha game go down, but then that's just the whole concept of why the person was saying, is gacha games as a whole unhealthy? I wish I could find that one again, because I saw that one a while back, a long time ago, when I was playing gacha games, when I was playing Grand Blue, and I was talking to a friend about it. If FGO shut down right now, you can hear the screams from space. Most free to play will never give up. It's weird because the companies need to pay to play players. It's a weird balance that they have to find with these games, right? It's like, okay, the free to play players, they want to not feel left out. They want to feel like the game can support them as well. And the pay to play players usually are competitive. They want to feel strong. So they need free to play players to beat in order to get that satisfaction. So the free to play players play an important part that they have to lose to the pay to play, but the free to play also got to feel like they can compete as well. It got to be a balance between they feel like they can do things, but then the pay to play players usually got to come out on top. Because if the pay to play players are losing the free to play, if a game is balanced to where you paying in the game and you could still potentially lose the free to play players a lot of the time, people will be mad. I'm telling you. Can you name a gacha game where you pay a lot of money and free to play players can still beat you like 50 to 60% of the time? I can't think of one. It's like they gotta find a weird balance inside these gacha games. Pay to play players definitely have this weird thing. Yeah, so they have to spend a lot of money, but then they have this concept. Like when a game has competitive aspects, it's always this concept that comes up, and it happens in a lot of games, where everything has to be like ordered, right? Like organized. Like there always has to be something that's organized. When I'm talking about order, I'm usually talking about tier lists. And like, it's like those things have to be followed to a T. But when you get to games that don't have any really competitive aspects, yeah, they still have tier lists, but they matter far less. And I think that's where the stress leans off at. It definitely depends on like the competitive aspects. Because you can still pay in a game and don't have any competitive aspects. And it makes the tier list a lot less strenuous, right? Like, what's the point of paying for a game that has no competitive aspects outside of just trying to get the character that you want? There's no obligation for like you trying to compete, right? There's nothing to compete in. So you don't feel forced to to pay for anything, to try to like compete for anything, or try to get some extra currency for things like that. Arknights is a good example. Arknight have plenty of tier lists, but then you also hear plenty of things about that game where you can play anybody. We can even talk about Genshin Impact that's about to come out. Genshin Impact will probably have a tier list when that game comes out. It's bound to happen. Someone's going to make one. 100%. It happens in every game. People make tier lists for everything. People make tier lists for cereal brands. Come on. Fast food restaurants. You can't get away from tier lists. But the tier list is going to be a lot less problematic. And I think we talked about this a little bit before when we talked about it with Honkai. How there's big tier lists. There's tier lists for that game as well. But then I guess there's the jargon, or like the way the community talks, that makes it feel like super important. And it just comes down to like, what's the free-to-play player's mentality at that point, right? If the free-to-play player's mentality is they just want to enjoy the game, then I think the wording or the jargon that's used for them probably should be different. Because it's weird, because I get a lot of people, because I do a lot of YouTube content, I get a lot of people in my comments that come to me in my comments and be like, it's sad sometimes, because like they say stuff like, I wanted to play this game, but I heard my favorite character wasn't good, so I don't want to play no more. Or is it true this character's bad? That sucks, man. And like they put like a sad face. And it's like, you try to explain to them, well, what are you playing for? And it's like, I just want to, I want to play for fun. I'm like, oh, then, play who you want, right? But it's something about like the way like the community talks that like sort of discourage the free-to-play players, if you guys know what I mean. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, where like people like, you can see it in the Reddit forums or see it in the Discord, where people like, this character is unplayable without her gear or something like that. It's like, are they really? So like, this person can't clear the content at all with this character? It's like there's a difference in mentalities between like the free-to-play players and the pay-to-play players when it comes to that. And it goes beyond the gambling at that point. I actually don't know what, I guess it's just a competitive nature. I don't know. What do you guys think about? Why is there like a disconnect between the free-to-play mentality and the pay-to-play mentality when it comes to that aspect? Free-to-play versus pay-to-play mentalities. It's definitely an interesting topic that can definitely be explored a lot more. But yeah, the biggest thing that came to me for sure, that like the reason like this topic even came up is just because coming into it and having like, just a completion mentality, which a lot of the people that I play gacha games with also just have that mentality where they just get on, they just do their stuff, and then like, they roll for some characters, they don't get them, oh well. But it's like, because that's the thing they do, and just because of all the competitive players have this other mindset of like, you can't do shit unless you have this stuff, it turns some people off. It's like the community are scaring potential other players. And I only see it through like the comments that I get in my YouTube section. That's the only reason I know about it. We definitely got sidetracked from the topic. It happens sometimes. But yeah, so like I said, I just want to talk about that one. I thought that would be a pretty interesting topic. One other thing real quick is something about gacha games, that the fact that you spend so much time on them, it still holds you. Now, if you haven't spent a bunch of time on it, and people will quit like right off the bat. But a lot of people, it's sort of hard for people to quit. People get mad. Like all them CN players that you saying are probably mad. If that's the main gacha game that they play is Honkai, and they spent lots of money and time on it. They may be mad and they may be talking right now, but I don't think they're going to quit that easily. I don't think it's that easy. I do feel like the CN players are really picky at times, though. I know a lot of their money funds the game, but like they got MiHoYo to nerf Made's heals. Is that really what happened? Is that how the heals got nerfed?